Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your host, Cesar Hernandez. Tonight, we're going to talk about the opening Liga MX weekend. We're going to talk about that amazing performance from Chucky Lozano. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Golden Globes. That was really important to me, guys. I didn't watch that Monterrey match. I was watching the Golden Globes. I don't know about you guys. We'll be talking about Moonlight in Atlanta later on, but I'm just kidding. But before we go into our favorites from the Golden Globe weekend, let me introduce you guys to our guest tonight. Our guest, which you know and love, Jason Markowitz over in Philadelphia. How you doing, man? Did you watch the Golden Globes? What were you up to last night?
I really didn't do that. No. Last night, it's hard to say, but I chose not to do that. Although I ended up seeing a lot about it in the news and on Twitter and stuff. So
yeah.
I guess a lot of people were watching it with you, man. So I guess
that's true. A lot of interesting people. But yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited that Liga MX is back. So a lot to talk about, and some very exciting teams to talk about as well. So
yeah. I know you're definitely excited about one of them, Johnny.
What's up? Before you even asked me about Golden Globes, I was following the gasoline price demonstrations more than the Golden Globes.
That's
how much I don't care about it.
Yeah, we'll see if we're able to get down to the Estadio Caliente on this Friday.
By the way, I think you have to drive that day.
No, actually, I'll get to talk to you about it. We should switch because I'm going to be down in LA. This is a different conversation we should be having. I'll take the next home game if you get this one. But anyway, Johnny, how are you doing? Other than trying to figure out with me who's going to be making the drive down to Tijuana on Friday.
I'm all right. Supposedly Liga MX is back, but I didn't see any evidence of that because America didn't play. So,
of course, we could have expected that answer from you.
The season does not start until January 15th when America plays against Toluca.
I'm sure most people and actually the league would disagree with you. But all right, Naive, how you doing? Naive.
Oh yeah, good. Cesar, Jason, Johnny. Well, after the holidays, I mean, it was interesting because of the final on Christmas. I think that was something unexpected. And then, of course, then all of a sudden now we're here. I mean, it just started in the Dia de Reyes Magos, the league. So it's been like sort of holiday theme type of deal here with Liga MX. And like Johnny said, I mean, of course, America plays against Toluca next Sunday in the new renovated Nemesio 10. But there's also other great matches next weekend. Toluca, America, like I already said, Pumas, Cruz Azul, Monterrey, Chivas, León, Necaxa is another good game. So I mean, it's really interesting that really early on in the season we got a good menu of games.
Yeah, there's most definitely a lot to look forward to, and there's even a lot to talk about from the past week, and it's kind of crazy that just like even without a big match, I thought about just like, oh, it should be Chiapas versus America. That's gonna be big, because you got Moises Munoz on one side, you got America on the other side. Even after that was delayed, it still feels like there's a lot to talk about from the past weekend. And I think personally, the biggest thing to talk about was a hat trick that Irving Lozano had for Pachuca. This 21-year-old kid, which we've all been talking about at length for quite some time, and I've written about this, and I'm sure you've seen about it, and you've seen a lot of rumors too about him potentially leaving to Europe. And I'm going to bring this question to you guys. You can talk about Chucky, you can talk about that game, but is he ready to go to Europe? Is he the guy right now who should be leaving, and he has no place in Liga MX? So I'm going to go over to let's go to Naive. Hey, what are your thoughts on Chucky Lozano?
First of all, I think the game itself, Pachuca León was probably the best one in the first weekend. I mean, I think Pumas Chivas had some good minutes from both sides. I think León Pachuca was really exciting because of the goals, but also because of how intense both teams were. Although they're owned by the same group from Grupo Pachuca and Carlos Slim, but they played like they were two rivals that just wanted to beat each other up. But with Chucky Lozano, I think it's something that we've been talking about for the past, I would say, year and a half. That he's already a player that should be in Europe. He did have, I think, the bad mark for him in 2016 was Olympics, but maybe it was caused because he played in the Copa Centenario, and he came in tired maybe for the Olympics. But I mean, the talent is there. You know, I think few Mexican players have it. Last season, you can say that he was the best Mexican player in the league. Some can even say that he could have been the best Mexican player throughout the whole year, you know, because of what he did in different phases of the year. But I think here what we have to keep on the lookout is the price tag, you know, because the rumor is that Chivas paid Pachuca around $15 million to get Rodolfo Pizarro. Well, I think Pachuca would want to get something around that area for Chucky Lozano. And then we'll have to see. I mean, the rumor is that Ajax is really interested in him, and that would be an ideal club for him. You know, to land in a club that is you know that does play European tournaments, but it's not your Manchester United, your Real Madrid. I mean, it's a process that he has to take, but the talent is there. You know, I think that's something that we all know here on the table.
Johnny, your thoughts?
Well, your question is, does he have to go? No, he doesn't. Could he go? Yes, I think he could go to Europe. I don't, but no, I do not think that he needs to be going to Europe right now. You know, he's a Mexican. He's a young Mexican player. Plays for his hometown Liga MX club, where he did the youth system. And you know, I don't know what is so wrong with the idea of, you know, building a career with one club. You know, what's so bad about that? You know, just be that franchise player, be that club legend. You know, what's wrong with that?
But don't you think that
why,
he's already?
Why do we need to be pushing players out of the country?
Would you say that he's already outgrown the league? Because at least from my perspective, he could be doing something a lot
Definitely
more.
Not.
You don't think he's outgrown the league? A 21-year-old kid who scored like a hat trick.
Definitely not, because look at the type of players that the league wants to bring in. They want to bring in players the caliber of André Pierre Gignac. You know, I'm not saying Chucky Lozano's at that level, but you know, if we're getting rid of anything that comes close to that level, when is the league going to be at that level? If we're pushing all the talent out.
You don't think that would help the national team at all if he were to go over to Europe?
Right now, I'm not worried about the national team. Right now, we're talking about Chucky Lozano and about his club Pachuca. You know, the national team needs to worry about itself, and the league needs to worry about itself.
I think there's something to be said for the fact, and I agree like somewhat with what you're saying, Johnny, and that because I'm also someone I think who agrees with Johnny a lot in that I care a lot about the league somewhat more than the national team a lot of times. But at the same time, I think for Chucky Lozano, I think he's kind of maxed out what he could probably do in the league. I don't think he's grown too big for the league necessarily, but I think the issue is that in order for him to grow as a player, I think he needs better competition. I think he needs to go and play. And I think like his first stop in Europe might not necessarily give him that. Because he might be in a league that is at least somewhat comparable to Liga MX, because I think Liga MX is a very strong league. Yeah. But if he goes to one of those moderate European leagues and proves himself and gets into those occasional Champions League games and has that superior talent that he's going up against, and then is able to make that leap into that big club or that big league and where he can be week in and week out playing top level competition, his ceiling goes higher and higher and higher based on higher competition. So that's just better for him. Forget the national team stuff. It would be better for the national team, of course. But just about him, I think it's better for him as a player. Personally, what's better for him, I have no idea.
You know what would also help his personal growth, because I do agree there's only so much you can win in Mexico. If the league directors, you know, got their heads out of their rear end and worked out a deal where Mexican clubs could play in Libertadores, and not just Mexican clubs, the best Mexican clubs play at Copa Libertadores. That's where talent gets pushed. That's where, you know, you make a name for yourself. That's where you can have higher goals and face higher competition still within your hometown club.
John, right now you're opening up something much more different than Lozano right now. If we're going to go into Libertadores, where you're opening up something about scheduling, opening something that might not even happen next year. But going back to Lozano, I mean, I guess you could see that I mean, it's clear. I mean, just look at this. I'm wearing the Mexican national team jersey. I literally have the Mexico flag back there. So of course I do have that one track mind. I'm not gonna lie. Like if you're personally, I'm not gonna pretend and hide that that my favorite team is by far is the Mexican national team. It is, and after that, Liga MX for me actually does come second. But still, I feel like recognizing that, I still feel from Chuky's perspective, I think it would better him, and I think he recognizes the opportunity that he would have abroad. And I wouldn't fault any player at all, and you shouldn't for wanting to make that leap and go abroad. And even if it means something like an Eredivisie squad, an Eredivisie club, which might not be at the same level as a Tigres, might not be at the same level as a Monterrey or an America, I still think that is a risk worth taking to better himself as a player. I don't know. What do you guys think about Lozano?
Well, I think the point that Johnny brought up about, having players that stay in a club, one that comes to mind is like Cuauhtémoc Blanco. I know that Cuauhtémoc played in the Fire and he went to Valladolid in Spain, but, you see Cuauhtémoc Blanco and you think about America. I mean, that's how it's going to work out. And since then, there's few cases that we have like that. Perhaps Chicharito, if he had stayed in Chivas up to now, perhaps Chivas would already have won a title, because that's what they lack. They lack a goal scorer that's going to put the ball in the net all the time. But right now, Chicharito's struggling. We know that, but it's a different case there. But with Chucky Lozano, I think you got to see the cases in how Mexican football has developed since 2006. The more players Mexico has in Europe, the better its football is gonna be when it competes against the best. The Copa America Centenario was horrible. I know that it wasn't, what we expected because of the talent that the team had and where it finished, and how it finished. But the Confederations Cup in the summer is going to be a good parameter, because you're playing against Portugal, against Russia, teams, European teams that play different styles. And that could be a good moment for Mexico. And if Chucky Lozano goes to Europe now, you have more of those options. Having, for example, Vela, Chucky, Tecatito already in European football, plus Chicharito, Raul. Basically, all of Mexico's offense is going to be in Europe by the time the Confederations comes up. And that's, I think, a huge positive for Mexico.
I think one of the biggest talking points, I'm just looking at this in the chat right now, La Selección Azteca 13 just posted this, and Jason just pointed out on the YouTube chat, he said he or she said that the way things are going, no European club will pay what Pachuca wants, and Chucky will be sold to America. Obviously, that's a little bit of a hot take right there, but it's not too crazy to think of. I mean, right now, from what all the rumors are saying, who knows if it's true or not, Ajax are offering about 12 million euros for Chucky. Who knows if that's something that Pachuca want, and maybe in the end, maybe he will actually be sent to a bigger Liga MX club. Maybe Chivas will be willing to pay for that. Maybe America will be willing to pay for that. So that's something that's to keep in mind too, is if these European clubs will be willing to make that financial investment for Chucky right now.
It's a scary proposition because I think, I mean, not a lot of European teams are willing to spend that much money on a player that they consider unproven at this point. Mm-hmm. We watch him all the time. We know what he has done. We consider him to be a proven player, but he's unproven for a lot of European clubs, and they're looking at a 19-year-old who, they're just not willing to invest that much money, and you can understand that based on what the prices go for here in the Mexican League and the value of the Mexican players in the Mexican League. So it's a tough situation, and you could see a situation where he does get stuck here for a little while.
Take a look at the Carlos Salcedo deal to Fiorentina. It was a loan deal. It's still not official that he will end up in Italy. And that's something to keep an eye as well. I mean, sometimes the Mexican players overpriced. Look at Alan Pulido, how much it costs Chivas. I mean, that's a insane transfer number, to consider. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, if it's more than $15 million for Alan Pulido, it doesn't make sense. But that's how the market works in Mexico. But I think that looking at Chucky's case specifically, if Ajax offers 12 million, I think that's good for all parts. Because Pachuca does get more than $10 million. Chucky's going to a club that perhaps is not right now an important European club, but in history, Ajax is important for football, because You think about Johan Cruyff, and there's never been a Mexican footballer in Ajax. You know, all the Mexican footballers tend to go to PSV. So it will be interesting if that move does actually work out.
Yeah, so we'll see if that happens. There's been someone actually who follows me from the Netherlands on Twitter who's been sending me direct messages. I completely forgot his name. I should forgot his name, but just he's been sending me messages constantly, like, "Hey man, everyone in the Netherlands and everyone is going crazy about this. Like, do you have any more info?" And I keep telling him, just like, "No, right now it's all over there. We're taking all those rumors that you guys keep saying." So, but yeah, so
but that's
we'll
a
see how
good sign. I think that's a good sign.
That is most definitely a good sign, actually. Yeah, that it's coming from over there as opposed to us making up these dumb numbers and just hoping that something happens.
Good is subjective. Good is subjective.
Depends on your perspective, Johnny. Obviously, like I'm obviously biased. I'm not gonna pretend. Look what's going on up here. All right, guys.
Hey,
let's hey, go for it, Johnny. John, I'll let you have the last thought on this.
Yeah, just think about this. Do you watch the national team every weekend, or do you watch Liga MX every weekend?
I mean, if we're talking about this, a Liga MX game rarely instills and rarely puts in the same kind of excitement for me that a national team game.
But Liga MX gives you 9 games per week. You know, national team gives you 1 every 4 months, and it's usually a nuisance.
No, it's just maybe it has more to do with the fact that because it's more rare, it feels more exciting, and also because I cover a lot of Liga MX, I feel like I should be more biased. Not biased.
I feel that we could go into a philosophical kind of conversation with this because the Liga MX does connect to the national team in a way. Yeah. Because a lot of the players that play in the league play in the national, but that's a whole different topic, I think.
Yeah, that's a podcast in itself. All right, guys, let's go over to. I'm going to go over to you on this. We're talking about Paco Gemes. The more I read about the guy, we talked about this when we were getting ready for the show. Like, the more I read about the guy, the more I like him. And I know a lot of people on Twitter have already started bothering me about him. It's probably going to build up. They're going to be like, "Since you're way too excited about this Paco Gemes guy." It looks like, from my perspective, it looks like he's turning Cruz Azul around. It's just one game, once again, and we talked about this in the chat. You can't make a big deal out about just one performance. But I feel like there's something there. There's something that. Yeah, but I am.
You can't make a big deal, but you are.
You shouldn't, but I will.
I shouldn't, but I'm about to do it right now. I think there's something there. Jason, you're a big Cruz Azul fan.
I am.
Paco Gemes.
The Cruz Azul fan.
The Cruz Azul fan.
No pressure.
Tell us about Paco Gemes. Is he going to turn him around?
That is a difficult question to answer. I don't think I can't say yes or no, really. Is he a great manager for Cruz Azul right now? I really do believe that he is, because I think he could really bring some new ideas and get this team that has a decent amount of talent and is bringing in new talent for the season, get them playing a decent brand of soccer and get some good results. With all that being said, I've said for a long time on this podcast that the problem with Cruz Azul was not the manager, despite the fact that Tomas Boy was a disaster and horrible and my least favorite person of all time. With all that being said, the problem with Cruz Azul is that they entirely lack any sort of youth system. They completely disregard it. Not only do they not have a youth system, they do not buy young players in any sort of fashion. They don't look for quality Mexican players to bring into the team. All of the new recruits are coming from South America, and most of them are retreads and kind of questionable. Every once in a while, they get the decent prospect in, and it looks the early returns this season are promising. So a lot of that depends on the direction of the front office, how much they empower Gemes to make some of these decisions, whether they're going to kind of continue the same direction that we've had with Cruz Azul for many years now. That, with all that being said, with the short tournaments in Liga MX, and you have this group, if you get them playing and get them into kind of a rhythm, crazy things can happen, and they could, go ahead and win a title. Even Cruz Azul could do this. But there's big problems with this club: the consistency, the youth, the age, and the way they're bringing in players. There's a lot more going on than just the manager. But back to your original question, Gemes, great pickup. I'm very excited what he's doing with the club. Time will tell how much he's empowered to really turn this club around.
So what you're saying is just like Chemis is a step in the right direction, but that kind of covers up a lot of underlying things that perhaps people don't really recognize with the club.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I just there's just a lot of problems with the club and the way they just their general. There is no long-term plan. It's just the fix every season, and that goes beyond the manager. It's just the patchwork of bringing in just kind of random guys sometimes to kind of fill in the gaps where it doesn't totally make sense.
Yeah. Naib, your thoughts on Paco Gemes, what he represents for Cruz Azul, going off of what Jason said as well, if he will be able to help a lot of those problems which Cruz Azul has dealt with, in recent years.
What was interesting, I think, I remember when Marcarian coached Cruz Azul and he took the team to the final the other time. I mean, he was sort of a coach that was sort of foreign to the league, that he wasn't knowledgeable in a sense, and he didn't know the ins and outs of the league. Came with new ideas from South America. Well, now Paco Gemes comes from Spain, and he does know certain things about Liga MX, but he's learning as well. He's learning the details of how to play the league, which is really, I mean, this league is competitive. I mean, because every single week you're gonna have a tough matchup, even against the Pueblas and the Chiapas. Monterrey struggle against Puebla, and if you compare both squads, it's like, come on, man, Monterrey shouldn't be having a tough time against Puebla, but that happens. But here with Paco Gemes, I think his ideas really go in tune with what the league is. Because the Liga MX is a league where attacking teams are really common. It's rare when you see the defensive team, because you can say that Tuca is defensive, but he actually isn't, because he always has possession of the ball. Tigres is one of the teams that has the most possession of the ball in the league. So the thing here is that Paco Gemes has this ideology that is really attack-minded, and it really fits the league. And I think that's going to help Cruz Azul. And also, I think, like Jason was mentioning, in the past, there has been quite questionable pickups. I mean, sometimes they do signings, and you're like, why are you bringing this player? Well, this season, I think, in particular, the pickups have been really fitting to what the team needs. Peñalba, good midfielder, strong midfielder from Veracruz. And then you get Mena. So now you got Mena on the right and Joao Rojas on the left. Two Ecuadorians that are really quick. And then we'll see what happens with Cauterucho. But Cauterucho seems like a really experienced footballer that can give good performances to Cruz Azul.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm gonna say is I was pretty impressed. It was just one match. I know, John. I know. We're gonna go over to Johnny in a bit. I know he has his thoughts about Cruz Azul, but I was quite impressed with I think the organization of Cruz Azul, and I think the positioning as well. It's just a complete 180 from what the club represented, and especially with all the fans too. You could tell it was clear that a significant amount of fans showed up in the stadium. Whether it has more to do with Paco Gemes starting, whether it more to do with just it's the first game of the season, let's show up, let's give him a chance. But I don't know, there seemed to be something different there, and it was I genuinely enjoyed watching that. It was a 1-0 win for them, but I think that was more their.
Necaxa didn't take shots on goal.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
It was one of the more interesting matches for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Cruz Azul, one of the big struggles with Cruz Azul last season was just that midfield and that stability, and Peñalba, I think, makes a massive difference for Cruz Azul. I mean, he provided a lot of stability for that midfield that was kind of a mess for the last year or so. Mm-hmm. And then going forward, it was just the creating of chances, and everything has gone through Benitez. And Benitez is a decent forward, but we'll see. I mean, time will tell whether he's really going to make a big difference at Cruz Azul or not. He could, because I think he's still a decent player, but I mean, there was just a lot more going on. There was just a real spark to the team. Now, Necaxa is probably better than just about anyone in the league at just snuffing out opposing attacks. But Cruz Azul had a few chances, and they built up a lot. It wasn't beautiful 90 minutes by any means, but for the Cruz Azul we're coming from, this was a good match. And even if Necaxa somehow stole the goal, I'm happy with how Cruz Azul is playing, because they have been difficult to watch of late, and yeah. On Saturday they were enjoyable to watch. So I'll take it.
Johnny, your thoughts?
Here comes the reality check. Because I watched the entire match, and I will say that Cruz Azul played very good football for. I give it about 35 minutes. They completely dominated, a good portion of the first half, and then completely disappeared in the second half. And I think they benefited from the fact that Necaxa are a weak team, and the last season's success for Necaxa was a fluke. I think reality is starting to catch up with Necaxa. They have a weak team. They sit back, they park the bus, and they hope to get lucky. They didn't against Cruz Azul. Paco Gemes, he's brand new to Liga MX. I'm a firm believer that not anybody can just walk into Mexico, a hold of the Mexican game. It will take time for Paco Gemes to get used to, the Mexican brand of football. I don't think he's just gonna come in and conquer Mexican football like people want to make it seem. I don't think Cruz Azul is gonna go 17-0 and then.
I don't think he's going to conquer. What Paco Gemes is it seems like the guy is going to shoot for draws. He's going to shoot for wins or losses. And what's going to happen along the way, my guess is that he's going to get some losses. He's going to get some heavy losses because it seems like the adventurous kind of like style play he's going to get. And as soon as he gets those few losses, people are going to criticize him. And they're going to say the things that, like you were just saying, just like, oh, he couldn't adapt to Mexico. He couldn't do this, blah, 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 blah.
Look at Guardiola right now.
Look at how successful was Matosas at America trying to do that. It sounds very familiar. Matosas, I think he was once quoted, he'd rather lose 5-4 than win 1-0. And that's exactly what happened in his one and only season. He lost 5-4 in the Liguilla and got canned. But
the thing here, the styles. I mean, in Mexico, there's different styles, and there's different styles that can lead you to success. Because, for example, Bucetich, El Rey Midas, his style is not like Gemes, yet he has a lot of titles, Bucetich, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. But with Gemes, I think Cruz Azul is a team that was really not exciting to watch. Has not been really exciting to watch in the past 5 seasons. I mean, they haven't even made the Liguilla in the past 5 seasons. So bringing in Gemes does, make the league more interesting because Cruz Azul was sort of hidden. It was lost, And now I think there's a chance that Cruz Azul will once again be in that mix of.
I would much rather have like a Paco Gemes and like another Tomas Boy, another like Ruben Omar Romano. Just like it's refreshing to me, and I appreciate that. Whether go for it.
You say that Gemes, makes the league interesting, but it's not actually Gemes. It's just the fact that Cruz Azul fans have hopes. That's what makes things interesting because there's going to be a big crash at the other end of that.
But looking at Gemes' career, I think this is a moment for him that is really important because. In Spain, he coached sides like Rayo Vallecano and Granada, teams that really didn't have any budget. Cruz Azul has a good budget. I mean, I think Cruz Azul has a better budget than Rayo Vallecano and Granada. So this puts Gemes in an interesting situation. He comes to Mexico, and he actually has a team that is willing to go out to the market and bring in the players that he wants. Because Mena was an express, pedido or a player that he wanted in his team, and so Cruz Azul brought Mena. Then Gemes said, "Let's bring in Cauterucho." Well, Cruz Azul brought Cauterucho. These are picks that he made, and also, he has a lot of options. I mean, in defense, you got Velasquez, you got Cata Dominguez, you got Enzo Rocco, you got Silva as well.
Those star players, how you think they're just going to make an impact right away, or do you think there's going to be a good 6 weeks of them having to get used to Mexican soccer, the altitude at Mexico City?
That's a good point as well, Johnny.
But what I think Naib is getting at also is that there's more depth in this team than there's been in a while because these players that are brought in don't need to perform right away because the squad is deeper than it's been in some time because there were some solid additions, but not a ton of players that have been cast off or sold off or have left that Cruz Azul are really going to be missing in any way. So I think as Naib just said, there's a lot of options for him as right now with Cruz Azul, and all of this to say that Jimenez is not some miracle worker. Cruz Azul isn't the leading contender to win the title or anything like that. But it's saying that here's a team that was out of the Liga for the last 5 seasons, and here's a team that probably will be pushing for one of those top spots and maybe could do something.
I'm still
And
thinking
that's
it. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
in Liga anything can happen.
yeah, most definitely. And I think I don't know. I don't think he's gonna be pushing him to a place in the top 4. I think he's gonna push him to the playoffs. I think once they go to the playoffs, it'll be intriguing to see what he can do.
What's a successful finish after 17 weeks?
Liguilla, I think.
Liga,
Cruz Azul
yeah,
has to be
Liga,
Liguilla.
Yeah.
So just 8th place is success?
I mean, the point is
Liguilla.
the point is to reach the Liga in order to reach the title, Johnny. You don't have to. It just like you asked Leon about those times that they finished in 8th, and like, when you won the title, but you finished in 8th in regular season. So
No, I want to know where's the bar for this Cruz Azul team? Like what is a success and what is a failure?
I would assume the bar for him and what the club is looking for is getting back into the Liga and the kind of gaining some respectability back with the club. For me, as a Cruz Azul fan, it's what the product on the field looks like. Mm-hmm. Whatever happens in the season, I'll sort of be okay with. That's a lie. I won't be okay with like really bad results, but I want something on the field that resembles a quality team again. If I get that, and Cruz Azul gets to the Liga and crumbles and falls apart because of that giant monkey on their shoulders, so be it. At least I'm back to where I was before.
All right. Well, clearly it sounds like this will be interesting. Just like this is something considered
a subcampeonato.
Clearly, it sounds like this sounds like something that we could talk about at length in future shows. It's be interesting to see how
it will be a recurring topic, definitely.
It seems like it'll be interesting to see how this continues Paco Gemes and what he represents and what he's able to accomplish with that Cruz Azul and what those small mistakes or those big mistakes we'll see.
Right now, Gemes Cruz Azul has 6 games, including the preseason. The preseason is 6 games, 6 wins. The big test, I think, is going to be Pumas because Pumas only lost once last season at Ciudad Universitaria. Pumas is a better home team than an away team with Paco Palencia. So if Gemes Cruz Azul is able to go to Cruz Azul to Pumas' place and get a win, that's a huge statement, I think, right away.
At Pumas, home for Monterrey, at Xolos. I mean, we're going to see where this goes here.
Oh man. All right, so before this turns into the Cruz Azul podcast, let's go over to the next topic, which is let's wrap up. I think I want to touch on 3 topics. I want to talk about the Chucky. I want to talk about Paco Gemes, and I wanted to wrap it up before we go into the rest of the Liga MX scores. I'm going to talk about Toluca. The odds of them having a memorable year. I think even though Atlas went down,
it's already memorable. It's their centennial. It's already memorable.
No, but maybe I should say historic as opposed to memorable. A historic year for them. Even though Atlas went down the 10 men, Toluca will still be able to beat them 4-1. And I feel like this is kind of like a transitionary kind of like thing to them. Like they're going to be going to the renovated stadium. Sambu is going to be showing up soon. So is this? What's? Okay, so John, you already said it's going to be a memorable year. I mean, what's my question to you guys? What are the odds of Toluca having a historic year? What does that mean to them? Johnny, you already talked about it right now. So are they going to have a historic year? What would a historic year be for them?
I think a championship would be historic, like what you're putting it. Mm-hmm. I think success for Toluca would be a trip to the semifinals.
Again?
They weren't in the last semifinals.
No, I just meant that's just like Cardoso. That's just I just think of semifinals.
Yes, but this is Hernan Cristante's second season in charge. Mm-hmm. I think I think he took over Toluca last season, did pretty good, missed the playoffs, but I think if he can get him into the semifinals, I think that's another step in the right direction for that particular team. Mm-hmm. And as far as historic, like you were saying, I think winning the championship, tying Chivas in championships, not letting Chivas be number 2 in the entire country all by itself would be pretty historic, and more so on their centennial year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we'll have to see how the defense works as the season progresses. I think in Liga MX something that we have to point out is a lot of the teams are stacked in the attack, most of them. But it is those teams that are really balanced out in the defense that will tend to win the titles. I mean, Tigres, that defense that they have, it's been together for like 3 years, 4 years already, and you see that consistency. With Toluca, they still rely on Paulo da Silva, and Paulo da Silva is already around beyond 35, I think. Just like Dario Verón and Pumas, who's 37. I mean, when you have center backs that are really, Rafa Marquez in Atlas as well. I mean, the speed is going to beat those defenders easily. I think that's my doubt about Toluca and the defense. Still got to see a little bit more games, but I think the offense is pretty good with Auche, with Sambuesa, with Uribe. Barrientos is a great player as well. So
you
we'll have to
you mentioned
see.
you mentioned Sambuesa, but I mean Sambuesa can add so much to that midfield in the retaining of the ball and recuperating the ball. The hustle that Sambuesa puts on the field. If he loses a ball in the attacking 6-yard box as an opposing team, he'll sprint all the way next to his goalkeeper to win a ball back if he has to.
No, that's an excellent point. I think also it's just like the next month. It was, forget which day exactly in February they're going to be celebrating officially their 100 years. I mean, but that's coming up. They also have, the next game against America is supposed to be scheduled. From what I've read too, there's like a small chance that it won't actually be held in that new stadium. From what I've seen, it's just like some people have to come through and check that the stadium will be fine to host the game. I mean, I think someone said it would be like 99% that it's going to happen. So it's going to happen,
Yeah.
but
It's going to happen. It's going to happen instead of the 12 p.m. tip-off is actually going to be around 4, I think.
Yeah.
4 p.m., I think. Because at 12, Pumas and Cruz Azul play.
Yeah.
And the TV network that owns both teams is Televisa, and Televisa doesn't want to have the two games at the same time.
Yeah.
They want to split them so they have ratings on both sides. Now, of course, they also, over here in Mexico, they're crazy about the other football, the American football, and that also comes into play with ratings and stuff.
Speaking of NFL football, New York Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. decides to put on a Cruz Azul mask. The week before his game, his team just gets absolutely killed. I think the curse of Cruz Azul is pretty clear.
Johnny, I'm gonna say this, and I've said this before. I'm gonna jump into this. I was gonna go into other topics, but I feel like the two most lazy jokes, the two most lazy Liga MX jokes. Number one is anything about Cruz Azul. Oh, look at Cruz Azul. Oh, there's some fan of that game. Oh, Cruz Azul Leando. Oh, yeah, they lost because of that dude. That's such a lazy. I don't know why it bothers me so much. I'm not a Cruz Azul fan. I'm not a Cruz Azul fan. I don't know why that bothers me. The other like lazy joke is just making fun of Moises Munoz's weight. It's just that's just like a constant. I don't know why that bothers me.
Talk about lazy.
I have no idea.
Talk about lazy. He's just talk about lazy. He should hit a treadmill.
It's just I know. Anywho, sorry, I just had to bring that up. That's just been sitting with me for a while. And
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know why I had to mention it.
But you can call it lazy, but facts are facts. The guy put on a Cruz Azul mask.
What, dude?
They
Like
had a horrible
99% of
game.
people who are like making fun of his weight are like sitting at home like me, like drinking beer, like slightly overweight. I don't know.
The NFL player put on a Cruz Azul mask, had a horrible game. His team gets killed and eliminated.
Sounds like a hero to me. So
What I like about that too is like some random reporter. I saw the tweet. It was like, hey, look at this, like Odell Beckham Jr. with a lucha libre mask, and then you just saw all the comments were just like, oh no, dude, oh he shouldn't have worn that. Oh blah 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 blah. Now he shouldn't have worn that mask.
Now, with hindsight, should he have worn that mask?
Who knows? Odell Beckham can do whatever he wants.
You want to ask the 13 million citizens of New York?
All right, guys. Before this goes into a different conversation, I was about to bring up the fact it's like, well, if only our best athletes played soccer, because apparently he used to be interested in soccer and then he decided to go into the NFL. But all right, let's go into the rest of the Liga MX scores. I mean, I'm going to go over a few of these, but I want to touch on a couple other interesting topics. But first off, we got Veracruz who beat Querétaro 1-0. Tigres who tied Santos 0-0. and something to talk about really quickly. Morelia beating Tijuana 2-0. At Tijuana, who didn't have Dairo Moreno in the starting 11, and now Cholos have
But more importantly, they didn't have Auche.
They, you could say they're on the same level. Who knows? Yeah, you could say they're on the same level. But the Dairo Moreno, who now reports have said that he's going to be going over to Colombia. He's going over to Atlético Nacional in Colombia. That's something to note right there. Then we got to talk about this match really quickly, just because I felt like it was one of the most entertaining matches of the weekend. Chivas beating Pumas 2-1. He had goals from Chofis. He had a goal from Polido. Either of you guys get a chance to watch the game, and if you did, give us a little update about what happened. Jason, you're nodding your head right there.
I did nod my head. I did watch this.
Big mistake.
It was a great match. One of those matches that Chivas really had came out, and you really liked some of that attack they put on. But then at the same time, Pumas looked pretty good as well, especially on the road where you don't really see that strong Pumas play. But they really did bring it to the OmniLife, and I don't know. It gives me hope for both of those teams going forward because I think both of them played pretty well. It's one of those things games I think it could have gone either way, especially of those balls that hit the post as well. But Nico Castillo for Pumas really jumped out for me. Jumped right off the screen actually with his speed and his play, and it seems like a great acquisition for Pumas. So I don't know. I think there's a solid case watching that game that Chivas are ready to take another step forward with how that attack looked and that cohesion in that team. So there's a case to be made there. As we've said before with all these games, a whole lot of games to be played and a whole lot of things to be determined with these clubs. But both of them look pretty good.
It looked okay on this weekend, week 1. But I don't know how much success. I think there's too much attacking options on the field for Chivas. I haven't watched too much in the past of Chivas, but I don't think Saldívar is supposed to be a winger. I think he's supposed to be a central striker. He did have the assist to Pulido, but how successful was that going to be all season long? Having a guy that's supposed to be in the middle of the box out wide, I don't think they can sustain that all season long. I think eventually Almeida's going to have to dial it back. But unfortunately for them, I think the pride of good, glamorous attacking football might get the best of them.
Yeah, John, look, I saw you wrote actually about what was it on? It was from Prost America, and it seemed like you actually had a lot of positive things to say about Chivas. Actually, it kind of caught me off guard. What were some of those positive thoughts? Just because I'm just poking fun of you right now, but just what were some of those positive things that you had to say about that game?
Let me pull up the article because I wrote it at 2 in the morning last night.
Straight Goat was the ghostwriter for that one. That wasn't actually Johnny.
He outsourced it to the Stray Goat. Dude, just send it over to me. All right. Well, while Johnny's looking for it, Naive, your thoughts on Pumas and Chivas?
What I think it is an interesting point, that one from Johnny, that putting Saldívar sort of on as a left winger when you have like Brizuela on the bench. But then again, I think Almeida likes Saldívar a lot, and he's gonna make everything in his power to put him in the 11. And he responded. The assist was great. Saldívar reminds me of Raúl Jiménez. I mean, the same type of forward. They're gonna grind it out wherever they put him. They can put him as central striker on the wing. They're gonna fight for the ball all the time, and that's the type of player you want. You want someone that's gonna be doing that high press all the time. Pulido was good, with the connecting the passes with Chofis. I think that's gonna be interesting. Chofis, I think, is the key here because it's already the 3rd season since that breakout he had in 2016 Clausura.
Second season with the number 10 too, right?
Yeah, the 2nd season with number 10. It is a player that Almeida has sort of taken quite, with ease, sort of not throwing him out right away, but taking him step by step. So I think this is his season because Gulit Peña is not in the picture anymore. And it seemed like Gulit Peña was sort of preventing Chofis from being in the 11. So that's going to be interesting. And of course, Pizarro, just meshing into what he has to do with Chivas. He struggled a bit, in my opinion, in the first game, but that's normal. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him, the price tag was really significant for a player. And a lot of the football will run through his boots, with him and Orbelin. And it looks like Gallito Vasquez is back at his level. Let's hope he is, because I think he's a great defensive midfielder, not only for Chivas but also for the national team. A good option to have. And I think having a Gallito Vasquez who's at a top level will permit Pizarro and Orbelin to showcase their best football. But it's the first week, and also let's see if Osvaldo Alanis will stay fit, because that's another thing. Because usually Osvaldo has some good games, and then all of a sudden he gets an injury. So if he can.
Defensively, they allowed Pumas to create a lot, and if it wasn't for the post, I don't think Chivas would be holding on to all 3 points.
Monterrey is coming.
But to what Cesar said, the positives I mentioned for Chivas was the fact that Javier Lopez and Alan Pulido found the back of the net, and that for your two strikers to score a goal in the opening game of the season, that's important for confidence to keep going forward for the rest of the season. So that's important for them, that their two forwards got goals.
And actually, I will admit that just like Pumas had it was an impressive amount of shots against Chivas. So I think Chivas were perhaps a little lucky to walk away with that one, because I think Pumas ended up looking like the better side, especially with someone like Castillo, who did really step up and looked pretty impressive for them too.
Javier Cortez, Pablo Barrera, had a good shot. So those are interesting notes as well. They brought in Ravelo from Santos on loan to Pumas, and they're hoping of getting the best of Ravelo. But I just don't see that guy working out. I think at the end, that Ravelo is going to be benched, and I think Matias Britos is going to be in the 11 with Nico Castillo up top, and that's going to be scary. I think Britos and Castillo are going to mesh in pretty well.
Now, Chivas did, they showed some good, but, their first goal was complete gift of a goal by Picolín Palacios, who is, returning to Picolín ways, just losing his footing, tries to come out to cut the angle and decides to just slip on his rear end and let the whole.
I know, John. We got the official rumor right here from Jose Ramirez on YouTube. It said Picolín to Real Madrid. So apparently they're interested in our beloved veteran.
Yeah, I think he needs to join his brother in retirement.
No, I will say that, like, if we're gonna talk about Picolín just really quickly, just like I think he exceeded my expectations.
Last season, how many PK saves did he have last season? It was four or something.
He's exceeded my expectations, man. Like, it's just like it's almost to the point where like you almost have to stop making fun of him just because he's like, and maybe it was all those jokes that really inspired him to step up. But anyway, all right. Last game of the weekend. Which I was watching, kind of admittedly a little on and off because of the Golden Globes, I'm not gonna lie. But I had those who beat Puebla 3-2. Cardona had the game-winning goal. And to me, the moment of that game, Cardona, after he got that goal, went over to the Rayadas fans, pointed his badge, pointed to the ground, basically said after all that I know infamous stuff he said recently, he's just basically saying like, I'm gonna stay in the club. Guys, thoughts on that match? Now, let's go to your thoughts on Cardona, maybe what he could represent this season, or just that Ayala said, it's a perfect start for them. Is that win, that away win?
Yeah, I think it was a big win. Of course, the penalty decision was quite questionable. It could have gone either way, but more towards like not being a penalty, I think. And I think it's important for if Rayados managed to get that form that they had in the 2016 Clausura with Pavón, Funes Mori, Carlos Sanchez and Cardona, there's few teams that can stop that. I mean, I think it's really hard to stop that. If those four are clicking and they're responding how they're supposed to, I mean, it's just unstoppable. I mean, Cardona himself, when you see him on the pitch, I mean, he just looks sluggish, like he's not going to do anything. But once the ball comes to his feet, he just unleashes an amazing rocket from his boot, and it smashed the post. It smashed the post against Puebla. And then, of course, the penalty kick. That's meant the win. I think that's important for Rayados to get the best Cardona again, if he's in fact staying, because of course the transfer window doesn't close until late this month, so anything can happen, So, but even an offer from China can come or something. You never know. Here, I think that's something to keep an eye with Cardona. If he stays, I think he's staying. That's my impression. But we'll have to see if he starts acting like the Cardona that we're used to from, especially the 2016 Clausura, because that one was special. And if he does that like that, I think Rayados will definitely be a title contender.
It feels like, it was like what? At the end of the Clausura where we were just saying, just like, with those long range goals that he had, we were just like, geez, this guy, it seemed like it was inevitable. Like, for me, he was like number one candidate to go to Europe. It's like a European club is looking at this dude and thinking, I need this guy as soon as possible.
Another Liga MX talent you want to throw out of the league.
No, I'm not saying that I want to throw him out. I'm just saying that European clubs are looking at him and saying, that's an interesting option. A young guy from who was, let's say, he's only 23. He was at 23 at that time, I think, because now he's 24. He was 23 years old, and he has this confidence. I mean, he's just and he's like this. Not saying he's like a bulky, strong, aggressive guy. He can run past a lot of the defenses. He has a powerful shot. Why wouldn't you be intrigued by him?
A poor man's Ronaldo?
No, that's a poor man's Ronaldo. That's just saying.
The Brazilian
Ronaldo. Johnny, when you look at Johnny, when you look at what he did in the previous Clausura, if you're a European club, you'd be like, I'm interested in this guy.
I don't mean that as a disrespect. I think very highly of Brazilian Ronaldo, and having a Colombian version of that would be. I would love Edwin Cardona at America.
Of course, I mean you'd probably Edwin Lozano. You'd probably You'd probably embrace like a Raúl Jiménez. You probably want Raúl Jiménez back in America.
Hey, Raúl Jiménez is a youth project. Of course, I want it.
Jason, sorry.
I'm surprised about like the lack of outrage about Cardona stealing Jesus Molina's hat trick by taking that penalty kick. What's up with that?
I mean,
that was with Jesus Molina and scoring 2 goals there off corner. Because I mean, I think Jesus Molina, he's sort of a really experienced Liga MX defensive midfielder, and he did make a difference yesterday with Rayados because the pitch was awful, so it demanded for a physical game, and there players like Jesus Molina and Cesar Montes were they were playing their type of game, so I think they got everything. I mean, you see Rayados, and it's like every single part of the team, defenders, midfielders, attackers, they got everything. So I mean, even goalkeepers now, because they got Álvaro Domínguez and Hugo González. I mean,
González was on the bench. He was on the bench.
He was on the bench. Yeah, and he'd probably be on the bench for a while too. I don't know if he'll start over Domínguez.
I saw the Puebla Monterrey game, and that Monterrey goalkeeper looked very, very bad at coming out to cut off crosses. Every time he'd come off his line to try and cut off a cross, he would just drop the ball in the middle of the box, and he looked very, very nervous. Monterrey found that goalkeeper, but they need to send him right back.
Right now, all I'm paying attention is someone on the YouTube chat said are Cuervos, if they're going to be a title contender this season.
They are in second division. They need to focus on getting promoted back into Liga MX. Getting their stadium back from the governor. They have a lot of administration problems ever since Isabel took over. Things were never this bad.
Are there administration problems? I wasn't aware of that with the Cuervos.
Yeah, things were never this bad under Chala.
All right, guys. Just to wrap up the Liga MX stuff, I'm going to ask each of you guys. You're going to have to give me your early predictions. I know it's only 8 matches. Not even like a full first round has happened because we're still waiting for America to take on Chiapas in February. But we only have 8 matches. But I want to know. Let's hear this, and hopefully I'll hold you guys to this. I'm going to record this and give you guys a hard time after the end of the season. All right, who is going to be Liga MX champion? Who will be relegated, and who will be the top goal scorer? Jason, going over to you.
Well, as far as the relegation battle, I think we're in for a really interesting one. It's hard to say, but if I had to pick one, I'd say Veracruz. Don't trust them to get the results simply. Top scorer, it's hard to pick against Chucky at this point with the 3-goal lead on a lot of players right now, but I'd probably go with Boselli over at Lyon. I think he's kind of a bit forgotten at this point, but they're going to be putting up a lot of goals this season. I think he's going to get a whole bunch of them. And a champion, Cruz Azul, obviously.
Boom.
No brainer.
There we go. There we go. There we go. No, Johnny, we got this. John, we got this recording. And now after that response, I want Cruz Azul to win. That's not my pick, but now I want Cruz Azul to win. Johnny, we might as well go to you since you almost interrupted Jason's pick with that laughter. Johnny, what are your 3 picks? Are you also? I heard you're also choosing Cruz Azul to be the champion, but let us know. Champion, who's going to be relegated, and who will be the top goal scorer?
Champion, Club de Fútbol América in the year of their 101st anniversary.
A shocking pick. All right, relegated and goal scorer.
Relegated, I'm gonna go with Morelia.
Morelia, interesting. All right, and who's gonna finish the top goal scorer?
Top goal scorer, it's gonna be, why not? Edwin Cardona.
Ah, not a bad pick. All right. All right. Interesting. Naive, same questions to you.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Cruz Azul as well. I want something crazy to happen in Liga MX again.
Yeah.
Well, I think the last season with the final was crazy as well. I mean, maybe the football wasn't that amazing, but you saw everything else based entertainment wise. So hopefully this season we see something crazier, and I think the best thing that could happen is for Cruz Azul to win. Because that would just cap it off, kind of. And then for relegation, I think we'll go Chiapas. I'm tired of that club, to be honest, with all this, stuff about like the players not getting paid, and I'm just hoping they just relegate the team.
You want to send Moises Munoz from the final to Ascenso?
Well, that's I don't know what happened there with Moy.
Hey, Moises will be going straight to Major League Soccer after that, man. Come on, he's not gonna be hanging around.
There's 5 goalkeepers in Chiapas. I mean, 5 goalkeepers. Why do you need 5 goalkeepers? That club just doesn't make sense.
I think the America presidents went over to Chiapas and said, "Hey, I think you want a brand new goalkeeper." Not even a question. It was more of a suggestion/order.
It could have been an order.
Sounds
yeah,
right.
You just never know here with Mexico. So Chiapas to be relegated, and then top goal scorer. Just go with Gignac. I mean, just go with the easy one,
Gignac,
and
all
see,
right.
probably score another 8-9 goals or something.
Yeah. All right. So my picks, I'm going with. I don't know. I think there's something to be said about Luca. Maybe a little bit of the motivation they can get. I mean, who knows? But I think they're a team that's worthy of sneaking into the playoffs after missing out last season. And I think with the new stadium, I think with Sambu, I think with especially someone like Auche. Let's see if Alexis. I can't believe I forgot his last name. Alexis
Vega.
Alexis Vega. There we go. If Alexis Vega can get back to full health, and he could be back in the team, I think there's something to be said about that club, and especially with someone like Talavera. Protecting the back line, protecting the net. I'm going to go with them as the champions while they're celebrating their centennial anniversary. Who's going to be relegated? Veracruz. And if I remember correctly, they started 8 new members of the roster in their season opener. And I would have said Chiapas, and I think Chiapas they're up there as well. And you can see in the relegation table that they're close to being relegated. But I think Moises is just going to save them in a lot of key situations. I think he's going to be a very, very valuable player to them. So I'm saying just a Veracruz that's just going to be relying on Lalo Herrera at the very top to be providing goals. And it's a Lalo Herrera who's been kind of disappointing to me. And I think a lot of Pumas fans will agree as well. And the top goal scorer, I'm going to say, once again, now with Dairo Moreno out of the picture, I'm going to say Raul Ruiz. I think after he had an incredible first season, now that he has that under his belt, now that he has an experience, it's going to be enough to boost Morelia. I don't know. It's not push him out of the relegation race. Not enough to get into the playoffs, but I don't know. That's who I'm saying. That's who I think is going to be the top goal scorer. But yeah,
You said Raul Ruiz.
Yeah.
You said Raul Ruiz. You know, you're banking on a lot of consistency from an inconsistent league.
Well, it's inconsistent, but it's someone
He
who now
won.
has experience, and it's also like
He
it's,
won the
it's-
last. The rules of probability say that since he won the last one in this inconsistent league, he won't win the next one.
No, that's entirely true. I can't
He already has
argue
a goal.
against that.
No? He already has
was
a
that?
goal.
He does have one goal again.
He already has a goal. Yeah.
He scored that.
Molina
90
has two.
He scored that 92nd.
And Molina has two. So what?
So obviously that means
It's a
that
good start, though.
I guess obviously that means Jesus Molina is going to get more goals than Raul Ruiz Diaz.
So
All
the
right,
smart
guys.
Marines.
That's my logic.
All right, guys. I would go over the Europeans. We've already gone past an hour. I mean, but honestly, with the Mexicans abroad, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys want to say something really quickly, but there isn't really much to be said about the Mexicans abroad. A lot of games were postponed. There was some injuries. There was.
I got an idea.
What's your
From the
idea?
Mexican abroad.
What-
For Mexican abroad's coverage, why don't people just pick up this book right here and read your
Oh,
chapter?
there you go, Johnny.
Cesar
Tell us about your
Hernandez's
book. Yeah, tell us about your book right now. Sorry about that. I should have given you more time. Johnny,
Yeah. So
you
Cesar,
you have the stage.
Cesar Hernandez wrote a really good chapter on Mexican abroads for Prost America's 2016, the year in Mexican soccer. There's a very lovely foreword by Miguel Piojo Herrera dedicated to all Mexican Americans. So the book is finally on sale. Took us almost a year to put together and write. You know, I really stepped out of my comfort zone here. I was used to writing like 400-word articles. Now we got 10 chapters at about 3,000 words each. So it was a bit of a challenge. That's why I was, cursing the referees. I was mainly inactive all of last year because I was focusing on writing this book that's now on sale. The pre-sale is actually going on right now on the Prost Publishing website. And if you buy it through there, there's a chance that your book might come autographed by Miguel Herrera.
John, you should post the link to that book on the YouTube chat because there are some people right now who are asking about it. So yeah.
I would accept. I already know that YouTube will not let me put a link on the chat.
Oh, okay. So for those who are interested, they could obviously go to your Twitter.
Twitter. No, Twitter.
It's pinned on my Twitter account. Yeah, I've tried to put links on the YouTube chat before. It doesn't work. But yeah, so the pre-sale the pre-sale is going on right now. It's about $20 for a copy. You order it, it gets shipped out to your house. It could come. There's gonna be a raffle from those pre-orders. It could come signed by Miguel Herrera, and then it's gonna be available on Amazon. And yeah, we're gonna publish one of these every year. We're gonna aim for summer publications instead of winter like we did this time. But yeah, look out for every summer we're gonna be publishing the absolute best stories of that year. This one, a very tragic 7-0 is heavily featured in this one.
I got a chance to look at it. Like Johnny shared like kind of like a rough copy of it. It was actually pretty cool. So that's something that I'm gonna purchase myself too. Like I think. I don't know. Yeah, so if you're out there, go visit Johnny's page. Go buy it pre-sale. Hopefully, you can get one signed by Miguel Piojo Herrera. But yeah, I mean, I was Johnny. Before that, Johnny, you cut me off about the Europeos, the Mexicans abroad. But to be honest,
Chicharito missed the PK, in the Florida Cup.
The Florida Cup, does that count? Does that count if it was Mickey Mouse who was refereeing the game? Like, does that really count? Like, if that's
against Estudiantes, no?
Are you? That's a stereotype of American soccer, calling it a Mickey Mouse league. That's just a stereotype.
I think I've ever seen some pictures in the last Florida Cup where like Mickey Mouse was actually kind of like walking out Leverkusen and like a couple of the other teams too. I might be wrong. I feel like I remember that. But anyway, but like regardless if it's a friendly, regardless if it's a tournament in Florida, that is something to mention. Chicharito did miss a penalty. From what I know, I think it seemed like he only played the first 45 minutes. It's still not good for him, and that brings up the big question if Raul Jimenez is going to be perhaps the big striker for Mexico, at least maybe in the first few matches in 2017. Who knows?
Then also, I mean, also other news, and ESPN with Jeff Carlisle, he said something that Galaxy is interested in acquiring Jonathan Dos Santos. which wouldn't be surprising if that actually happens.
Yeah,
knowing how everything has played out with Giovanni and the prospect of living in LA, that he's probably going to be a designated player. Jonathan as well. So we'll have to follow that. Another rumor that Carlisle brought up was that San Jose Earthquakes are interested in Darwin Quintero. That could actually happen as well. And then the other one that was coming from the Netherlands is that PSV would allow Guardado to leave PSV in the summer. What would that mean? It would mean that Guardado would probably go to Atlanta United. Imagine Guardado and Jonathan in MLS come the summer. That will be interesting to see how Osorio works that out. Because those are two important players at the moment. With Jonathan, I would hope that he could go somewhere else in Europe. Because he has the talent, but I don't know how attractive that Galaxy offer could actually be. It's probably going to be really attractive. So.
I mean, once again, it's from our own selfish perspective too. You see what Jonathan did even in that game against Barcelona, and you think that he could even step up to something above Villarreal, even though Villarreal are a fantastic club. He's done an excellent job over there. But
the thing that bothers me in Villarreal with Jonathan, Cesar, Johnny, and Jason is that he plays a lot on the right flank, and he's actually a central defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
He really doesn't play in the center, and that's where he feels more comfortable. He likes to orchestrate the game, and from the right, he does do good stuff. I mean, he does it great, but it doesn't show his best football, in my opinion.
Yeah,
he can do more, but that's what he does in Villarreal.
And I can see that too, but I think every time I've seen him play in that position as a right midfielder, maybe like in a little bit of a 4-4-2, I'm quite impressed with what he's been able to do, and I'm not really surprised that they want to continue playing at the position if he's done quite well. But once again, like it's a situation where, I mean, it's enticing for Jonah. Why would it be enticing? His brother's living in LA. They're gonna give him good money. The life of a soccer player. You're not gonna go past after your 30s. You're not gonna be making a serious amount of money. You're not gonna be making the kind of money he might be making right now if you were to move over to Major League Soccer, and whether it be Galaxy, whether it maybe eventually joins LAFC, it's enticing, and it's hard to blame him for that, at least from that perspective. But from a Mexico perspective, he's got to stay in Spain.
Yeah, stay in Spain, stay in Europe. I mean, you see right now the success that Marco Fabian is having in Bundesliga.
Yeah,
I think Jonathan could be successful in Bundesliga. I don't know, like teams that are competing in Champions League. Like just to name a few, I don't know right now who. Wolfsburg or Schalke or one of those teams. I mean, more competitive football,
Mm-hmm.
Well, while we're out here daydreaming, I'll say that maybe one day Giovanni Dos Santos will play at America.
That could happen as well.
He's still somewhat young. I think eventually MLS is going to bore him, and when it's time to come to Mexico, I think there's no other choice but America.
All right, guys. So we've been talking now for about an hour and 10 minutes. I could keep going, but I don't know. We got to cut it off. It's getting a little late. It's been a good chat about Chucky, good chat about Paco Gemes, Toluca, Liga MX. I'm sorry to all the people in the chat if we didn't get to some of the topics that you wanted us to talk about, but we'll be sure to be back next Monday to cover. Not only, I mean, at that point too, we'll be getting hopefully some more news about the Mexicans abroad, maybe some new transfers. Maybe by then there'll be some more interesting topics to talk about with Chucky potentially going abroad. But Jason, I'm gonna let you, because I like what Wisa's been doing. Wisa's been just focusing on one person to wrap up the show, and he's been focusing on Naive, which makes sense. Naive is very eloquent, and he's probably the most practical, pragmatic of us all right now. Talk about Liga MX soccer, but I'm gonna give this to Jason. Jason,
awesome. I will take it.
Yeah.
Jason, you're gonna end the show.
All right,
Tell us your thoughts.
I want to make the case for this being just an absolute legendary Liga MX season. I mean, look at the top 8 from last season. Those that ended up in the Liga. You have Toluca, Pachuca, Tigres, Chivas, America, Pumas, Necaxa, León. I think it's hard to make the case that any of those teams really drop off and don't make the Liga. And then you look at the teams that are pushing and probably going to be pushing into it. Monterrey, Toluca, Cruz Azul, all pushing to move up into that top 8. And all have a legitimate argument to be in that top 8. So you have 11 teams right there.
Santos,
if I counted correctly.
Santos.
Also, And then also add in the fact that you have the relegation battle with Morelia and Chiapas and Veracruz all fighting for every single point. All of these teams pushing the gala, those three teams fighting relegation, there are no easy games. Every week it's going to be an absolute battle for all teams. We're looking at the schedule from last week, all these good games. This coming weekend, look at all these great games. It's going to be every week, look at all these great games, because all these teams are going to be pushing for points. And I think we're in for something special this year.
No, agreed.
Ferretti's mustache. What else do you want, man?
Thanks for ruining it, Naive. That was perfect. What, Jason? I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
La Volpe's mustache. I rate the La Volpe mustache.
All right. Thank you, Jason. That was perfect. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone part of the chat. Thank you, everyone who were patient with us, because I know we've gone like 12 minutes over. Yeah, be sure to keep up on our Twitter account. We're going to be mentioning when we hopefully have our next show next Monday. By then, Guiso's probably going to be back and have a little bit more organization than I will. That's for sure. But yeah, have a good Monday. And yeah, let's see what happens this week. And not only just Liga MX, but just Mexican soccer in general. All right. Have a good night, guys.